Hi everyone, it's Jerry. There's a trap for black out of the two knights defense that can catch the white side who tries to land a fork on this f7 square with the king knight and the king bishop converging. So let's see how we can address such an idea. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and already from move 3 white points at the weakest square f7 once. Knight to f6, the two knights defense, and now knight to g5. So clearly we need to be doing something about this. d5 interferes with the communication on f7. E takes d, and now I've seen a few replies here by black. One is to take on d5, which is going down the fried liver attack road. We're not going to cover that. Nor are we going to throw any direct punch at the bishop with b4 or knight to a5. I've seen this before, this particular line, and also knight to a5, going down this road here. We're not going to cover any of those three moves, knight takes pawn, b5, or knight to a5. Instead, we're going to try knight to d4, simply centralizing our knight and setting a very small trap. One where, well, clearly we're not throwing a punch at the bishop, and so white may very well think there is time to clear the way, to simply clear the way, and get back on this f7 square directly. Now, before I get into what we can be doing in response to d6, let me just point out that maybe the best move for white is to simply do something about the knight that's in the white position with c3. And what you can be doing as a reply is b5. If the knight is taken, you take the bishop, and, well, we go down a very messy road, one where white is up a pawn, but we do have the bishop pair. That does count for something. And if instead of pawn takes knight, if the bishop plays here, we can be developing, like so. If bishop takes, we're there to recapture. It's an interesting position. And if the bishop goes home, this is one that I thought to be quite interesting as I was reviewing for this video. We can take on d5, allow our knight to be captured because we have a counterattack on g5. So if pawn takes knight, queen takes knight. If bishop takes pawn, king to d8, something needs to be done about g2. If castles, there's a few interesting moves for black here. This is the one that I found most interesting, bishop b7, because it's setting up something very deadly. The best move is probably queen to f3. Looks a little bit scary to place it opposite the bishop, but just to highlight how bad things can get for white, something as natural as knight to c3 will now be a mate in 4. With knight to f4, 3 pieces hitting g2, and you could only make computer-like moves to delay the inevitable. The main point here is that we're threatening mate with queen takes g2, and if this pawn moves, knight h3, that's mate. And so you can only do moves like bishop c6 and queen to f3. These pieces are just getting taken. And again, it's still the same story. If this pawn does not move from g2, queen takes g2 is mate. And if it does move, knight h3, game over. The main focus, however, of this video is this position right here, where we don't have the best reply, but instead one where white is looking to finally crash through on f7 by playing d6. Well, what do we do here? We simply take the pawn. There's 2 different ways to recapture. I'll cover both. If bishop takes pawn with check, we play to e7 and keep pressure on the bishop. We're now threatening h6 to kick away the knight and win the piece. The bishop needs to go away. We take the bishop. Pawn takes. We give the knight a kick. We give him another kick, and unfortunately the best he can do is go back home. If he's going elsewhere, such as h4, we move our king to f7. We wanted to go there anyway. We're defending against the fork. We're also threatening g5 to win the knight. Black is doing very well in this position. So the other line is going to be the one that white has been hoping for since move 3. They finally got what they wanted. They've landed the fork. The rook and the queen are hit, and it's very easy to overlook queen to c6, simply sidestepping the threat against the queen, counterpunch against both bishop and pawn. After knight takes rook, queen takes pawn, hits the rook. Rook to f1, that's the only safe square for the rook. And now, unfortunately for white, after queen to e4, you'll either have to give up the queen or the king. Queen to e2, we simply take the queen. And if bishop to e2, that's game over. I think many players as black would be thinking bishop g5 is a bad move because there is this potential in between shot. Bishop takes knight. And now what do you do as white?